People of Earth, I give you Matt Baume.
Oh, hello friends. I was just about to stuff this burrito down my throat, but there appears to be something strange tucked inside. It's an op-ed from James Lankford and Randy Forbes, Republican congressmen from Oklahoma and Virginia. They published it last week, pointing out that Chipotle had decided to cut ties with a pork supplier who didn't meet the company's animal welfare standards. Good for them. But Forbes and Lankford used Chipotle as an example to make a bizarre connection. If a decision based on moral convictions is celebrated, shouldn't a decision based on free exercise of religion, a right guaranteed in the Constitution, be even more so? Okay, they're saying that if running a business based on moral beliefs is good, then running a business based on religious beliefs must be even better. What? First, what religious beliefs are they talking about? The op-ed doesn't say, but when conservatives talk about religious freedom, they almost always mean freedom to discriminate. For example, Jeb Bush. Religious freedom is a serious issue. People of conscience may not want to provide services for a gay wedding. Indiana Governor Mike Pence says that he supports a law that would allow businesses to turn away gays because it reassures people that their religious freedoms are intact. Oklahoma Senator Joseph Silk, who says that LGBTs shouldn't expect to be treated equally, introduced a bill to deny service that has religious freedom right in the title. These politicians can't say discrimination because that sounds bad, but hey, religious freedom, that sounds great. And gee, what a coincidence, Lankford and Forbes are both co-sponsors of a pro-discrimination bill in Congress. Its name? The Marriage and Religious Freedom Act. In their op-ed, Forbes and Lankford only mention one actual religious principle, and it's in a quote that somebody else said. Dr. Brian Grimm, who says that the freedom for businesses to live out the golden rule fosters more trust within a company and enlarges public trust toward a company. That's nice, but what does it have to do with anything? No business's right to practice the golden rule is being threatened, and if the rule is treat others as you want to be treated, that's incompatible with discrimination. In any case, what does a restaurant's choice of pork supplier have to do with discriminating against gays and lesbians? I'm glad you asked. Nothing. Even Chipotle says the comparison is ridiculous. But let's say we went along with their argument that businesses should be free to decide who to do business with on religious grounds. In other words, isn't Chipotle's decision to buy ethically sourced meat the same as a baker's refusal to sell a cake for a same-sex wedding? No, obviously not. There's a huge difference. For one thing, Chipotle's decision doesn't hurt anyone, aside from people who love the taste of sad pigs, who are the real victims here. And for another, Chipotle has a rational basis for cutting off a supplier who doesn't meet animal welfare standards. Refusing to do business with gays has no rational basis. It's based purely on irrational prejudice. Of course, Forbes and Lankford would say, no, it's not prejudice, it's a religious conviction. So which is it? It's both. Forbes and Lankford suggest that decisions based on religious belief, by virtue of being religious, are decisions that should be celebrated. Do they really believe that? Would they honestly be willing to celebrate decisions based on belief in the Church of Satan, or the Flying Spaghetti Monster, or the Sith? Religion and morality are two very different ways of evaluating a decision. A decision based on religious beliefs isn't necessarily a morally good decision. Current events in history are full of examples of decision based on religious beliefs hurting people. For example, religion was used to justify segregation and laws that banned interracial marriage. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court once ruled the natural law which forbids their intermarriage is as clearly divine as that which imparted to the races different natures. Mississippi Governor Theodore Bilbo, yes, that was his real name, called interracial marriage sins of man in direct defiance to the will of God, and said that when a man destroys his racial purity, it can never be redeemed. Bilbo must have fallen under the influence of the One Ring.
Precious racial purity.
One of Bilbo's gubernatorial successors, who was unfortunately named Barnett and not Frodo, said that the good Lord is the original segregationist. He made us white because he wanted us white, and he intended we should stay that way. Using religion to justify discrimination was immoral then, and it's immoral now. But if it's not moral, is it at least legal? Nope. Bob Jones University learned that the hard way in the 1980s. Back then, they still prohibited interracial relationships, and when the IRS threatened to revoke their tax-exempt status, Bob Jones sued, saying that their discrimination was protected because it was a sincerely held religious belief. But that wasn't good enough. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that protecting the minority from the majority is more important than protecting the majority's exercise of racist religious beliefs. Lankford and Forbes say that Americans have always been free to live and work by their religious convictions. Quote, Americans do not check their religious freedom at the door when they enter the public sphere. But sometimes we do. Bob Jones University had to check their racist religious conviction when they opened their doors to the public. Bob Jones was perfectly free to keep discriminating, but they couldn't do that and still enjoy the same tax benefits as universities that don't discriminate. If Chipotle wants to make the moral choice to use ethically sourced pork, they may have to pay a little extra for that decision. If BJU wants to discriminate against interracial couples, they may have to pay a little bit more too. So if you want an equivalency that isn't crazy, there you go. Incidentally, it's worth pointing out that the Supreme Court legalized interracial marriage in 1968, but a majority of Americans didn't support it until 1997. If the court hadn't stepped in and made interracial marriage legal in all 50 states, couples would have suffered discrimination for 30 years. A whole generation made to suffer because some people claimed bigotry was a decision based on sincerely held religious beliefs. And let's be clear, LGBTs aren't the only ones who are vulnerable to religious freedom laws. Sincerely held religious beliefs could be used to discriminate against women who need access to healthcare, Jews, people of color, even interracial couples, which is insane because we settled that. Supporters of these discriminatory bills admit that the laws will have unintended consequences, and they don't care. During a city council meeting in Houston, City Councilwoman Ellen Cohen asked Pastor Betty Riggle if the law could be used to refuse service to Jews.
So you're saying, yes, they do have a right to refuse me service as someone of the Jewish faith?
No, I'm not saying, yes, yes, I am saying that, but that is not the issue that we're talking about today.
Okay, Exhibit A for why we don't leave the rights of minorities up to the whims of the majority. In fact, Dr. Brian Grimm, whom Lankford and Forbes used to cite the Golden Rule, undercuts their whole op-ed on his website. He writes, like any liberty, religious freedoms force those in power to protect the rights of minorities, even when the majority does not agree. Enforcing this liberty comes with a price, but the price of denying the freedom is far higher. So, let's bring this back to Chipotle. Wait, what does this have to do with Chipotle? Oh, that's right. Nothing. When you strip away all the distractions about Chipotle and the Golden Rule and religious freedom, here's what their argument actually boils down to. If a decision based on moral convictions is celebrated, shouldn't a decision based on free exercise of religion be even more so? If it's not crystal clear why this is nonsense, let's replace the weasel words with specific examples. If a decision based on animal welfare is celebrated, shouldn't a decision to deny same-sex couples a wedding cake based on free exercise of religion be even more so? That doesn't make sense. It's like saying, if we celebrate Apple's decision not to contract sweatshops, shouldn't a landlord's religiously based decision to evict a lesbian be even more celebrated? If Tom's of Maine won't buy ingredients tested on animals, shouldn't a restaurant be able to kick out Jewish women? If Starbucks can buy fair trade coffee, shouldn't hotels be able to refuse interracial couples? The arguments in this op-ed are ridiculous. The authors say they want religious freedom, but what they mean is they want the freedom to discriminate. And discrimination hurts people. Not just gay people, all people. Freedom protects minorities from majorities, so that nobody ever has to worry that they'll be on the wrong end of a discriminatory law. But these so-called religious freedom bills actually erase freedoms, and they're hoping people will swallow their little trick without noticing. Like a burrito packed tight with bull. I think I've lost my appetite. Fortunately, it's possible to identify and defeat these bills. Click here for a field guide to spotting and stopping them in their tracks. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments, tweet at me over at Matt Baume, and subscribe for more videos. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a greased pig to catch. I clapped, it splattered my face with condensed burrito water.